Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 274 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Lorraine. Lorraine is AJ's mom. Now, if you are a regular listener and keeping track of episodes, you would say to yourself, well, Marcy, you just spoke with AJ's parents. And I did speak with an AJ's parents. That was 3 weeks ago, and that was AJ's mom and dad. And this is AJ's mom because AJ's mom, Lorraine, comes from the UK. This is a very special time that this episode is being released as well. It seems like recently so many episodes are falling near or on special days when they are being released. And this one is no exception because Lorraine will have just been honoring AJ for the 2-year anniversary of his death, just days before this episode is released. It is really amazing to me how things keep working out just like this. As I told her today when the release day would be, she said, "Really?" Because she was shocked and had no idea that's the date that this would be released. I absolutely loved talking to Lorraine today. I got so much out of talking to her. Her spirit is just truly amazing. And little AJ was an unbelievable little guy as well. So make sure to go to my website, andysmom.com. And if you click on current episodes, you will be able to see cute little pictures of AJ. And also remember to follow me on social media on Facebook and Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see all sorts of wonderful pictures about AJ. And I think we're even going to get a few videos of AJ that will be playing kind of as you will hear Lorraine and I speaking in the background on those clips on Instagram. So again, go to Instagram, follow Always Andy's Mom on Instagram, and you'll be able to see all these wonderful little pictures and videos that we have going on. Right now, though, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Lorraine, AJ's mom. Thanks so much, Lorraine, for agreeing to come on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Thank you, Marcy. Honestly, it's been a journey, and obviously when I first contacted you, it's the aspect of telling you your story. It kept coming into mind, and firstly, just thanking. As I just stated, I've been listening since January 2023. So just wanted to personally thank the bravery of all the parents that have kept me going.
Yeah.
They really have. Everyone's personal story of their beautiful children have really kept me going and made me feel like I'm not going crazy. I'm not alone. Yeah, they really have. So I just like to thank everybody because I know it's not easy at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful community.
I'm so glad you wanted to start out that way.
It's just a beautiful community, and I think, this community is one where we have gone through what nobody would anticipate going through.
No.
When they first start being parents, nobody would even wish that and think, but here we are.
Yeah.
And in this next stage, it's how we progress through this grief.
Yeah.
For this joy, for this hope, for the aftermath, and just picking up those splintered pieces.
Yeah.
And there's so many splintered pieces.
So many splintered pieces.
And fragments. Mm-hmm. And trying to put yourself back together.
And yeah, it's hard. It's a hard process.
I'm going to be whole again. It's before and after. So I'm going to be whole again. But yeah, it is. So just thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you now for sharing your story. So, like you said, it takes bravery to want to share your story. And it's been a long
Yes.
time, almost 2 years of listening. And now is the time. Now is
Yeah.
the time that you tell your story about AJ. So, why don't you start out by just telling us all about little AJ?
Oh, my bundle of joy, AJ, burst into this planet on the 30th of October,
Uh-huh.
2021. He was early. He was about 9 days early. And I don't know what it is. I have AJ is my second child.
Mm-hmm.
I have a daughter. There was a 13-year age gap between them.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. That is a big age gap. Oh, my goodness.
I had my daughter at 32, and AJ just surprised me. He just appeared when I was 43.
Wow.
Yeah, totally, yeah, threw us all off this map because I had emergency surgery, ovarian surgery in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think I was able to actually conceive any more children.
Oh.
Yeah, I had a cyst that was hemorrhaging, so I had to have one of the left fallopian tubes removed.
I see.
So yes, yeah, it was just amazing that AJ even found his way.
I know, he's a little miracle baby, kind of, right?
Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah, got engaged in the February of that 2021, and then yeah, he appeared in October. Yeah, how can I say? He was just perfect. We had a cesarean. It wasn't an easy birth, obviously being an older mum and what they say, geriatric mum.
I know.
I love that term.
No, it's a terrible term, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Uh-huh.
But the pregnancy was. I mean, obviously being at that age, I think it was more society's fears that were projected onto me because I was just so worried a lot of the time being pregnant with him, etc. But I remember that every scan, just the trepidation, the nervousness, everything, kind of expecting things to go wrong. Because I kind of thought, okay, just preparing myself. But when we breezed through all the scans, etc., it was all fine. I did develop a little bit of preeclampsia towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's something that could occur even in younger pregnancies.
Yeah, that was when my first pregnancy I had that. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, apart from that, so I did have to be induced, and then the labour was long, to say the least. And then I had to have an emergency cesarean. But still, you just get through it, don't you? You don't feel that kind of,
right.
no matter how long it takes them to get here, as long as they get here safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had so much hair. I remember he had so much hair. Very calm. They did whisk him off when he was born. I must admit, they had a bit of concerns with his feeding, and he was just so quiet. And I remember actually on the ward, there were loads of babies crying through the shared ward, and AJ was just so quiet. It was feeding okay, but it was just so quiet. And I thought, oh, wow, we just, both of us, we were just a team. We just bonded so much. And I used just to stare at him because he had all his 5 toes, 5 fingers, eyes, hearing tests, everything he just passed.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, because I had a cesarean, I had to be in hospital quite a few days after the surgery, etc. So we didn't get a chance to go home until about 5 days afterwards. And yeah, and I remember just living in this bubble with him, bringing him home, seeing his sister. And it was just, his sister Sane would just stare at him. Yeah, we were just in awe of him. He was just so good. But I remember, when you put them down and you're always checking, etc., those first few days, etc., you're just always nervous as a new parent anyway.
And I've seen pictures. He's a beautiful little baby.
Oh, he was just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And he would stop. People would just look at him and just wanted to stop and touch his hair and his eyelashes. But not just that, his spirit was just gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
He made his milestones, obviously. Sorry, he did have a heart murmur. They did detect a heart murmur at birth. So he was referred to the prenatal clinic. He had his 2-week appointment. I remember I've got the letter here actually, and just going through it as well. He had his postnatal checkup and the systolic murmur. The registrar didn't notice it then. All his stats levels were fine, so they discharged him.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that unusual sometimes to even have a little murmur. And
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
We just breezed through. I was loving maternity leave, absolutely loving it. That stage, we had baby club we used to go to, all the baby classes, which I kind of missed out being a single parent when I was with the first daughter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I really did enjoy it this time. Didn't feel as stressed, I would say.
Yeah.
We found a local baby club, which we'd go to a weekly. We had a routine, him and I.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, slowly in terms of breastfeeding. And then he went on to the bottle and he loved his milk. Or he loved his milk. Again, no problems feeding, etc. No problems sleeping. I just think, you know, I've got, and I'll put the videos on afterwards, just a calm boy.
Yeah.
His whole spirit was just radiated calmness. He learned to smile, and when he learned to smile, boy, he did not stop and laugh. He didn't. He would smile. He was very spiritual, particularly when people walked in the room and he felt in terms of spirit, he would just smile.
I love that.
And it wasn't just a smile where it was just a beam of his smile with his eyes. He would smile with his whole face.
Yeah, just light up the room, kind of.
Yeah, that was AJ. It wasn't until about 6 months we had a little accident. He fell down. He fell off the bed. I didn't realize I could roll at this point. I went to the toilet. I left him in the bed, and he fell off our bed. Luckily, our bed wasn't too high, and I just had this thought, oh my gosh, I went nipped to the toilet, and yeah, he was just crying. And well, first of all, I noticed before then he used to sweat a lot, perspire a lot, and I thought that was my dad perspires all the time when he eats, and so does his dad. And sometimes I thought it was something genetic.
Okay.
He did sometimes when he was sweating or in the car seat, particularly, would get really warm. And I mean, when I say perspiring, I mean dripping sweat.
Yeah.
And even then, just going to the doctors, nobody could detect anything. Is he feeding well, etc.? Is he doing his stools, etc.? Bowel movements, yeah, absolutely fine. His colour, nothing to indicate in terms of his colour. His milestones he was hitting, etc. So it wasn't until this fall off the bed, and then I thought, okay, I need to take him to A&E, as you do. You need to get them checked out, etc.
Right.
So we went to A&E and didn't sustain any injuries from the fall. Like I said, the bed's not that high. I think it was mainly just shock.
Yeah, right.
In terms of him crying. But they said we can detect a significant murmur at this stage when we went to A&E. And I was like, oh, he had one at birth, but we were discharged from care, obviously, because they were told that they couldn't detect it anymore. And said, no, it's quite pronounced. So therefore, he was referred in the July of that year.
Mm-hmm.
And bearing in mind, I think we're just coming out of COVID, so a lot of back end of hospital appointments were difficult to get. And I remember his appointment was scheduled when I was due to go back to work in September, his first appointment.
Okay.
And I remember I thought, oh, again, as a mum, you just think, oh, can I try and rearrange it on my day off, his appointment?
Because how old was he at this point?
He was 9 months.
Okay.
9 months. So yeah, July. So we'd have been 9 months then. So bearing in mind the time we had to wait between the appointments.
Yeah.
I know it was quite a significant wait, to be honest.
Yeah, that is a long wait.
Well, then it might have been 7 months actually when we first got to the hospital in terms of his fall. When I said in terms of his appointment was September, I said, look, I remember phoning the hospital, can I change it for the Friday? Because that's when we're going to be my days off. His appointment was scheduled for Tuesday or Wednesday or something. And they said, no, you can't change this because it's an emergency referral. And I remember thinking, well, how emergency is it? Because I've waited this long. And, you know, why was it seen before? Obviously, I thought that was fine. I obviously stuck to it. I remember the partner, he took the morning off, and then I took him, and then my partner took the afternoon off and picked him up so I could go back to work. And he was seen on the 14th of September, actually, I got it here. And again, they referred him to pediatric cardiology, talking about, obviously, my concerns about him sweating, etc. But there's no concern with him feeding.
Mm-hmm.
We then had the echogram, I think it is.
Echocardiogram.
Yeah, echocardiogram. I remember it was the half term. He was scheduled to have that just before his first birthday. Remember, it's his October 30th.
Right.
So obviously we went in, that was the 14th of September, and then we had the hospital appointment, echocardiogram in October. I remember taking him in there and the sonographer checking him. I remember bringing him in, it was daylight, and by the time we finished with him, it was dark. And to the point where he should have fallen asleep. He was so concerned with what he saw, they admitted him straight away that day.
Wow.
Because he kept asking me any problem with feeding, etc. And then at this point, I didn't even know they weren't even clear as to what was wrong with him.
Right.
So it wasn't till eventually, when they admitted him, I said, I need to go get his overnight things, his belongings, etc. So his dad stayed with him. And then before I was leaving the hospital to collect his belongings, they then informed us that he had severe aortic stenosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was a progressive condition.
It is.
And the valves, obviously, should be 14 millimeters and AJ big. Bearing in mind, as he was growing up, at this stage, he was starting to walk. He did everything quite early. So he was creeping at this point. And in fact, he just started to walk. He was walking around about 10 months.
Wow.
So that was putting increasing pressure on his heart.
So the aorta is the big valve that comes out of the heart that goes to the body. And so it's honestly not that surprising that at the beginning, you don't always hear a murmur. So it might have been there.
Yeah, that's what they said.
It's very common that it's something that's picked up a little bit later. Hopefully not this much later, but it does progressively, that murmur gets louder and louder and louder because as the aorta should grow in these little kids, it doesn't. And so now the heart's getting bigger and it's trying to push through this same really small vessel, and it just gets louder and louder and louder. And that puts more strain on the heart and it gets backed up, and you can have all sorts of complications. So that's certainly what was happening, because that went far longer than you would want it to go. Although occasionally you'll have kids that can be quite old and have this be picked up.
Okay.
If it's a little bit bigger. It just depends on the size of the stenosis, like how small it is. So,
well, his narrowing was about 3 millimeters.
Yeah,
at
wow.
push.
Yeah, that's crazy.
At that age now, and they said it's going to get worse.
Sure. Because like I said, his heart's going to keep growing and he's not. So that's just something that you need to take care of.
Yeah, so that's what they said, that he's going to need emergency surgery as soon as possible. I think that was a lot to deal with, emergency heart surgery, can you imagine? And I struggled to kind of, but he looks fine.
Yeah.
In terms of, and then I realised as he was getting older, in terms of his breathlessness, but I remember he wasn't that active at that point because he was just starting to walk.
Yeah.
But you couldn't keep him still once he found his legs. We got his first pair of shoes. That's it. He was up and everywhere. And, even like him being admitted into hospital that night, they had to put him in a high, kind of a cot bed, hospital bed, and they put like, there were bars all around him because he wanted to escape.
Right.
He wanted to escape. And, he was still smiling. I remember he was just still smiling throughout everything. You'd expect to have said he's in pain or crying or anything. He hardly cried. So I remember leaving him in hospital that night, and just like your whole world comes crashing down because I didn't quite know what to expect. And still I thought, it'll be an operation, he'll get better, and it will be as helpful. It will be okay. And I still didn't think of the ramifications of him even having a stent in, etc., and all those things and possibilities. Life kind of after the surgery. I didn't even think. I just thought, let's get him operated on. And my concern with having open heart surgery, I was like, how can I pick him up? How can I look after him? It would have been, so, that kind of aspect. And that was where my head kind of went to. So his operation was due at the beginning of December. He stayed 3 days in hospital. Because everything that I was telling them verified. Again, they said, he seems to be still thriving, etc. So there's no point in keeping him in hospital. And he would have been his first birthday. And the next day, so they did discharge him the day before his first birthday. So he managed to spend his first birthday at home, which was nice. And the hospital team were lovely in terms of gifts, etc. And we had a nice meal, etc. We had to keep it quiet. But then he was due to have his catheter operation. So obviously they were going to do the first diagnosis at the end of November. So it'd be in November, in terms of exploring the dye in his heart.
Yeah, they put a little catheter in, actually through the femoral arteries, through kind of the groin.
Yeah.
And then they feed it up into the heart, and then they just inject a little bit of dye so you can actually see exactly how small that is, because it's really difficult with the echocardiogram. As accurate as they are, they're not like really accurate, so you can't tell exactly. And if you do a catheterization, you can see things much clearer, exactly what you need to do. So they like to do that before a surgery, so they know exactly where we're going to need to cut and remove and what we need to do. So
luckily, and we do have a wonderful children's heart hospital in our city as well. So we're very kind of fortunate there that we do have a huge team of specialists. It's one of the best in the area. So luckily we didn't have to travel far, etc.
That's nice, yeah.
It's literally 15 minutes away. So he was due for this, the catheter, an explosion of the dye. And I said, well, what about nursery? Because at this point he started nursery. He started nursery in September, going back to work. And he'd made friends at nursery and everything else. So obviously we had to have a health plan put in place. I says, can we... And in my mind, I was like, can we just try and continue as normal as we can for him until this, with life?
Yeah.
And so I wanted him to go back to nursery, etc. And then I was worried about, again, if I take time off work beforehand, I'm going to need, obviously, time afterwards to look after him, etc. In hindsight, I shouldn't have to worry about that. I shouldn't have worried about that, but we do as working parents, don't we?
Of course you do. Of course you do.
So I went back to nursery for the week, and obviously they put the health plan in place in terms of the doctors had recommended certain signs to look out for with his key worker. And I think AJ must have been at nursery for a week, and then he was due to have the hospital appointment, and he caught foot and mouth disease.
Oh no.
Hand, foot and mouth disease.
Hand, foot and mouth. Oh shoot.
Yeah, I know. I've never even heard of this.
That is so funny, because I just saw cases yesterday at the office. So
yeah, my mom was saying keep scratching. Someone was looking after him at some point. She'd come over, mum didn't live too far, and he keep scratching his mouth. And I was like,
I know. It hurts so bad.
It does. And then he was still smiling. There was pictures of him with his hand, foot, and mouth, and all around his mouth was just blistered.
Right.
It's awful condition.
And it hurts so bad.
Yeah, absolutely awful. So it turns out when he had that was when we went to the hospital. I did let the hospital know, because obviously they're nil by mouth in the morning for the operation. So I did call them in the morning and said, look, he's caught this from nursery. They said, still bring him in so we can have a look at him. And anyway, we did. And they said, no, we can't obviously go ahead with that. Obviously, he's got an infection.
Right.
So again, that had to be postponed. And I actually think now, in hindsight, that gave us an extra 3 weeks with him.
Yeah.
Because he was due for that operation again on the 4th of December. Again, I gave him his milk on the night time. At that period of time, it was coming up to Christmas. So tried to take him to as many Christmas activities. He went to see Santa Claus. He went to see Mother Claus. We did all these gingerbread making, everything. And I realized now how precious that time, those extra 3 weeks were.
Yeah.
With the pictures that I have of him, with the Christmas lights, and he got to see all those.
Mm-hmm.
So his operation was during the 4th of December. I remember the night before, he was playing with my purse, and he kept taking my cards out of my purse. I was saying, AJ, give me my cards, and we were playing around, and he put the card in your hand and then pull it away, and then put it in my hand and then pull it away. And then he was running around the living room. And I remember saying, when you're older, you'll be able to buy your mummy things with your cards. Yeah. And then the 4th, obviously, my daughter was going to school, and I was saying to her, it was dark again in the morning because his operation was early. So I had to leave the house at 6:45 in the morning. And I was saying to Lorraine, say bye to AJ. And she said, oh, Mum, he's coming back soon. He's coming back soon. So driving to the hospital that morning, and bearing in mind he hadn't had his milk, and he was used to his milk in the morning. His dad used to always get his milk for him. He didn't have his milk, and I was wondering, he didn't fuss. He didn't fuss at all, and he was in the back seat. I was driving. His dad was in the back as well, and I remember turning back at the traffic lights and stoplights to look at him, and he just gave me the sweetest smile. And then prior to his operation, I forgot to mention that my mum was, because I didn't want him going back to nursery because he just caught hand, foot and mouth, and my mum and dad will look after him till his operation. And I remember when I picked him up on the Friday, I was telling him to say goodbye to mum and granddad. Obviously, he'll have to come and see you in the hospital. And he did, instead of saying hugged my dad goodbye, he shook his hand. I didn't see anything like it. My dad was like, he shook his hand. He went like that to shake his hand.
He's like, oh, he's such a little guy, too.
Yeah, this is what I mean. He's like, an old soul.
He's like 13 months or something, right?
No, this is what I mean. He just obviously, And he shook his hand. And then my mum obviously walked us out and was helping me with all his belongings in the car. And I was saying today, saying, sorry, AJ, say bye to Nana. And again, he gave her this big smile. And it was the same smile that I got when at the traffic lights that day. So my partner was trying to find somewhere to park when we got to hospital. There's never any parking around the hospital site. So I suppose drop us at the front door and I could get his things out, putting him in his pushchair, bouncing onto the ward, singing, as we always used to do. And I actually believed that day was a day where we'd finally obviously come to finally have the operation. Remember, we had lots of delays beforehand, etc.
Yeah.
We're finally going to get this. We're finally going to get you better, etc. And I remember the anaesthetist came onto the ward, and I was changing his nappy, and we got to sign the forms, etc. before the operation. And he was saying, reading the clause, and he goes, this and this. There could be this adverse effects, this, and then the last one was death. And it was then when I registered. And I was like, but he's just having a catheter.
Yeah. Right.
And I didn't actually realise that could have been one of the effects of this, because I thought, obviously the heart surgery, but I didn't realise in terms of the catheter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you just get this feeling as a mum that I knew something. I just couldn't get my head around it. And then it was like trying to change him. And obviously, now there's milk and everything else. And we were first down at doing the weighed him, etc., as you do for the operation. I'd weighed him. And at this point, he was playing and tugging with everything. And I'm thinking, so we took him down to the surgery. At that point, I didn't want to take him, Marcy.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Because that thought was sticking.
Yeah, I didn't want to take him. And my partner was like, look, he's got to have it. And I said, I don't want to take him. So I actually went down the long corridor, down to the surgical theatre, the big doors. You remember everything, the colours, you remember the sounds, you remember the people, you remember the walk. You remember when I entered, the sounds the big doors made, and there was just this vast room of people, surgeons, and I had him in my arms, and I walked back out with him. And I knew I couldn't leave him. I walked back out with him. It took them a while to get me to come back in with him. I just didn't want to leave him. So after they convinced me, look, we're going to have to go through this. We've signed, we've waited. He's got this condition. He could go into cardiac arrest at any point.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, what are you to do as a parent?
Right.
So there's some really nice surgeons, and the anaesthetist, the lady, she really bent down and was talking to me and trying to console me both, because I was just in pieces. And then they said to obviously place him on my lap, and they put the mask on him to put him to sleep. And I would say that's the last time I saw him properly.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to say, that's the last time I saw him, because I'd literally, about an hour had lapsed, not even that. I went downstairs to collect something else from the car. My partner called me. His heart rate had dropped. And they had to do the emergency surgery, the heart surgery then and there.
Wow.
His heart stopped.
Wow. Just so scary.
Did the emergency surgery there, and he was in theatre for 9 hours.
My.
9 hours. And then they take you to the doom room.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, everyone's people have experienced this know when you go to that doom room, the news that you're going to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Separate room from everybody else. And they said obviously his heart stopped in that time to obviously resuscitate him and prep him for theatre. They've put a stent in his valve, but he was very sick. He was on the ECMO machine.
Mm-hmm.
So when we did go back to see him, finally allowed to see him, I'd never seen so many tubes and machines, everything from every orifice from him. And then all his surgical plasters, etc., over this tiny, tiny little boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just couldn't grasp it. I couldn't grasp it at all.
Right.
That was a Monday. Luckily they found us a room on the ward. Got a parents' room, etc. So family was coming to drop us clothes, etc. We weren't leaving him. Stayed there until about midnight. Said, look, you're gonna have to get some sleep. Went down to the parent section of the ward. They've got a good parent section where you can just stay overnight.
That's nice, yeah.
And I kept phoning the ward every hour. Obviously you can't sleep, Marcy.
No.
At this stage, can't eat, can't do anything. And I kept phoning, and they said, well, he's opened his eyes. And I thought, oh, okay. And it was that made me think, oh, he's opened his eyes. And there's some glimmer here. But then by the next day, we were called about 5 a.m. He'd had a bleed on the lungs.
Oh.
And then by Wednesday, there was no change. I remember I keep going back. And seeing his name on the board, the little whiteboard that they have, and I'm thinking, oh, he's moved into different room, there's going to be a change today. And then no change, and he had another relapse as well in terms of his lungs, and I remember at that point going in and seeing this team of surgeons around him, just like angels trying to work on him. It's a sight you can never unsee.
No. I know that well.
Yeah, you can never unsee it. People. By Thursday, they took him because they said they'd noticed no movement and the brain shafts that they attached them to. And then it came back that he had no brain function because that time when he was down, when his heart had stopped. Yeah. he lost a lot of oxygen. So
I'm so sorry. So hard. Especially when you had that kind of feeling too. That makes it.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm glad you did hang on to him those extra minutes, though, aren't you?
Yeah,
And you somehow knew. You somehow knew.
yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then obviously he was on a ward with other children, and I said, "Can you at least move him?" When they told us he is brain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like even to say the word, but I just knew. So can you move him to a separate ward at least? Because his family, his sister, had to say goodbye to him. And all I can remember thinking is, I haven't washed him. He hasn't had his milk. I brought him in on Monday and he hasn't had his milk still. And I need to wash it. I need to clean it. He hasn't had a bath since Monday. And obviously with attaching all the nodes and things to this huge afro that he had all his hair, etc. There's so much blood and so much, obviously, glue that obviously the nodes and the wires. And I can just remember this smell, and I just wanted to wash him.
Yeah.
So luckily, we baptized him in this September, actually. He was baptized.
Mm.
And so his two godmothers were with me, and my cousin as well, who has a nice natural scent making business and soaps and oils. And he had this ritual bath, which I'm going to describe. We just cleanse him.
I love that.
Him up, and I just washed his hair, and we just cleansed him, oiled him, bathed him, and dressed him so he was clean.
That's nice. I'm glad you got to do that.
But yeah, and then obviously it was just before Christmas. That was December the 9th, and when the hospital team told us, and I said, I can't leave him here. He's not going to be left in a hospital over Christmas. I can't leave him here. And the option they had said was to take him home. And I just remember, I thought, I can't. I was trying to compute it in terms of taking him. I brought him here in a pushchair with his. I was supposed to leave with him in my arms, not like this.
Yeah. Right.
Luckily, there was a doctor there, and she was a doctor from a wonderful place, Marcy, called Martin House, a children's hospice.
Mm-hmm.
And she's assigned to the hospital, and I remember her. She was like an angel. She bent down in front of me and said, "You don't have to leave him. We are going to take him. We've got a full room in this children's hospice. We've got a place for you to stay. You don't have to leave him until you make arrangements, etc." So that's what they did. It's real wonderful. Around about 11:15 at night, they came for him. And they bought this wonderful Moses basket, etc. And he was transported to Martin House, where they put him in a cool room in a bed, with all his favourite music on, light.
That's beautiful.
If it wasn't for them, honestly, because he looked like he was sleeping.
Yeah.
They just put him to bed, honestly.
That's beautiful.
There's no way any parent should have to leave a child in a hospital mortuary ward. No way. That's what I'm fighting for now. I just think, no, if it wasn't for them, Marcy, honestly. I used to go down, I'd stay there, I would stay in the room upstairs, and I'd go in there, and he'd just be sleeping.
Yeah.
With his lights on, his favourite lights on, his teddy bears, everything. And they were like, Lorraine and Nancy, my partner, if you don't want to see anybody, they control everything, because at that point you can imagine people are calling. You're trying to obviously navigate all the calls, etc. They did everything.
Yeah.
They tried to feed me even though I wasn't eating. They did everything. They made Christmas baubles out of his hands, his feet, etc. And yeah, there's nothing that I can think of that they didn't do. And we stayed there for a whole week.
Really?
Yeah, a whole week.
Oh my goodness. That's just beautiful.
Because it was Christmas, and obviously trying to phone round. I said, well, who's going to do a funeral before Christmas? And Marcy, some places were just, oh no, you're going to have it after December and January. And I said, it's my son, trying to explain to people on the phone. And he's only one. I need him to be put to rest before Christmas, please.
Yeah.
And I remember even Martin House, the girl, one of the assistants that worked there, she phoned everywhere, bless her. She wrote down the numbers, she researched everything. She said, look, I've tried this one's close to your home. And honestly, they were like angels at this point. Every single member of staff. And I remember they'd go in to see the death certificate, everything else. They'd arrange that from the hospital from there as well. Because obviously you can't have the funeral without the death certificate release.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd sort all that out, etc. Because where do you go from there? You know, you're still in this mode where what has actually happened?
Yeah.
I can't understand this. I used to say, oh, it's not, is that my mum's? It's not, I don't know how to describe it. You got this out of body mode, Marcy. That's not me. This is not me.
Right. And it just doesn't seem real. No, right.
No,
Right.
it's not me.
Right.
I'm just going through this, and this is not me. This is not us.
This is not happening. This is not happening. I remember thinking that into so many times, like, this is not happening. This cannot be happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the speed that they expect you to do things, obviously, whilst you're still trying to process this happening is still unfathomable, if you ask me.
Right.
Particularly when it's children, it is. And I remember finding one place, and sometimes you just got to speak to those people who God can send you as people that will just understand it. I remember starting one funeral home and I explained the situation. The lady on the other end just broke down and cried. I said, of course we'll do it for you. She said, you don't even have to pay a thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, funeral home, not too far. She said, the child, you don't have to pay a thing. Yeah, of course. So he was put to rest on the 22nd of December. And then I tried to think, okay, who can kind of lead and talk about him? And I thought the lady that baptized him, the priest that baptized him, and I phoned the church, and she'd left, and she went to the minister, one of the bigger churches, and the priest at the church where he was baptized. I said, oh, can it possible if I could have a number? And I got in touch with her, and it was about 2 days, and she phoned back, and she was in pieces. Of course, I'll do it. I said, I've just baptized him. So she did his, I wanted to say celebration of life.
Yeah.
Because at least she knew him.
Yeah.
Because he'd been to some classes beforehand, and yeah. That day, Marcy, I really can't even remember. Again, it's that out-of-body day where you see people and you see the sea of sad faces. And I remember thinking, well, my boy was never sad.
No.
He was never sad. And then life that's when the real thing begins, isn't it? The real.
Right. After that.
When everyone's gone, everyone's saying to you the cliches, let me know if you need me to do anything. I'm always here if you need anything. That's when the reality hits. Because you can go back to your life. Whereas this life that we have now, yeah, I didn't leave my bed for days, Marcy. Days. And my daughter was like, Mum, you got to live for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't leave my bed for days, just lived in the dark for days. It caused a real, how can I put it, just the grief between myself and my partner. He was dealing with it in a different way than I was. And
right.
He wanted to go and obviously travel and go and just get away from it. Whereas I had my daughter to look after. Yeah. But I just remember those days, the effect on your body. I think I went to A&E twice.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was happening to me. The pain in my stomach. I had the IBS. I couldn't, literal where you bend over pain. I had emergency services called out because one time I was just I felt paralytic. My whole back just seized up. I was just in my bed. I just couldn't move. And I think that kind of adverse effect on your body, people don't realize.
No.
Because they think, oh, you're doing okay, you're doing okay. The pain, I say, is still the fog there.
It's unbelievable what grief can do to the body.
Yeah, I know.
And the reactions the body can have.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm. But you're right. A lot of people don't know that. They don't think that.
Yeah.
It affects you physically, mentally, and cognitively. Thinking is hard. All of that is hard.
And processing everything. And going back to work 3 months after.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, work were very supportive. I didn't want any kind of gifts or anything at the funeral. Everything that we did, we've raised funds for Martin House.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, any fundraising, any cards of donations that didn't want, please just donate to here, because that service is invaluable. And the kids there, a lot of them have terminal life illnesses as well. And there were some children that I met there that, my little boy, beautiful boy, and his grandma said he may not make his 5th birthday. They're celebrating his 4th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow. But they were still trying, to make the most of the time that they had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like an amazing place.
It is. The aftercare, the counselling. I just spoke to them yesterday, actually, because she said, Lorraine, you always have such an imprint, a little mark on us, and we'd like you to come in, and don't think we've forgotten about you. We'd like to do some kind of, again, some outreach work with newly bereaved parents. What can we do better? Not that it's not like they're worse at all, but, we'd like to know all the time what other things can we do to support.
Yeah.
Because they provide a whole year of counselling, not just for me, but for the siblings as well.
Really?
Where they meet up and make all sorts of creative things. Yeah.
That is just amazing.
Mindfulness. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Wow. I am blown away.
So in that essence, I met and experienced things which I never even realised were in place. And I tell you what, Marcy, a lot of it has come from people that are not your family and friends.
Yeah.
I think obviously they process in a different way, but I've met some real, that's why I think some real angels God has sent down to just support me at this stage.
Yeah.
This is kindness that sometimes you think is not in the world, but it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And certainly other bereaved parents are so incredibly valuable. And we started out by talking today about how you appreciate all the stories and people sharing the stories, and how those shared stories can bring you hope.
Definitely.
And bring you, a little bit of strength, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's been 2 years now, right?
Yeah, it will be 2 years. He would have been 3 on the 30th of October.
Right.
And obviously the 9th of December, would have been 2 years.
So what has that time been like now? So you started listening to the podcast pretty early, you said.
Yeah, I did. I just found, because I was so isolated. Like I said, when people say you can contact them, but I didn't want to talk. I must admit, I don't think I was ready to talk at that stage. Just wanted company who understood.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the podcast brought, company. And every one of those voices, I felt like they were my friend. I don't.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I did. And even though I haven't met them, I felt like, but you know.
And we're all speaking the same language.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I understand you and you understand me. And that's just so valuable. And you're right, it's so hard. I mean, I just have spoken with David Kessler was just on the podcast, and he was talking about him as a grief expert, and he does all sorts of grief work. He's done it forever, right? But it took him 3 times before he was able to walk into his first grief support group. It takes a lot of courage and bravery to do that. And so sometimes it's easier to just do some listening for a while, right?
Exactly. And then that's what that provided, those podcasts they did. And I remember the stories of, well, there's not not 1, but 2, but 3 as a lady. And I was just so astounded. And she was still had so much faith and hope and still spoke so beautifully about, again, the joy that they brought, the time that they had with them and how precious that is. And I think that's what I'm at a stage is, and just appreciating that year that we had him for, those 13 months.
Right. And that's what I hear in your voice now today when you talk about, oh, I'm so glad he got hand, foot, and mouth because that gave us 3 more weeks. And right?
Yeah.
So all of those little bits of thankfulness that you can have now.
Yeah.
That certainly you can't have right away.
No.
Right away, the pain is just so severe and so great. It's hard to think about little sweet things like that. But now you're at a different point.
Yeah.
And now you're at the point where you can share. And like with what you're doing too, you can reach out to other bereaved parents. You can help them.
Yeah.
It's just, it all comes around, right? You start out that you just need to absorb, and you just need to try to gather strength from others, even people you don't know.
Yeah.
But then eventually you do your own sharing and you do your own supporting. So I love that. I love that it's come this way for you.
I just like to finish up because sometimes I think it depends how spiritual you are, but I believe I often used to go down to I call it his resting place, flower garden, still do. And in the first stages, I used to see lots of ladybirds on it. And I remember about 3 months afterwards, we were in the dining room and there was a ladybird in the dining room in my house. Never seen ladybirds in my house. It was on the ceiling. And I would say after that, Marcy, I've seen ladybirds. Whenever I'm feeling like I'm alone, they'll be in my car, on my car window. 2 have flown on me right in my path of walking, and landed on my core. And I think, looking at kind of the aspect of ladybirds and how sometimes I know he's around me.
Yeah. For me, it's a cardinal.
Yeah.
I just see cardinals all the time. My husband and I were walking yesterday. Yeah, we were walking, or day before yesterday, we were out walking and a cardinal flew in front of us. And I said, "Did you see the cardinal?" And he said, "Yeah, it was there yesterday too, when we had gone on the same walk." And I said, "Oh, I didn't notice it yesterday." And he said, "Oh, it was there at the same spot we were walking. It just will fly across in front of us from one tree to another. And it just seems like it's all the time."
Yeah, and the ability to connect bereavement, ability to connect you back to nature. So then when we got the news about AJ, there was just this flock of birds. And I knew that was the time that he passed.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I knew when I looked out. Even though obviously they turned the machines, etc. on the Friday, I knew when he did. It was a Wednesday of that week.
Well, thank you so much, Lorraine, for sharing AJ with us. I just absolutely loved hearing about you and your journey and him. And I do want to urge all of you, go on the website or go on social media so you can see all of the cute little pictures of AJ, because he is just adorable. You're going to love that. So thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.